Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping straight into Mastercard Incorporated today.
That's right. We've got the Q3 2025 financials hot off the press.
Yep, the earnings release and that very detailed 10Q filing from October 30th. Lots to unpack.
But our mission really is to look past just the headline numbers, The revenue growth is there, sure.
But where is it really coming from?
Exactly. Is it the core payment network or is it these newer services they're pushing? And crucially, we have to talk about the risks.
The legal and regulatory stuff. It's always looming large with these guys.
Multi-billion-dollar potential exposure. It really defines the background noise.
Okay, so the big themes seem clear. Record growth, especially cross-border and services.
Juxtaposed against some pretty hefty antitrust litigation risk.
All right, let's get into it. Starting with that top-line snapshot for Q3. So the 3 months ending September 30, 2025. Net revenue hit $8.6 billion.
Which is a 17% increase compared to last year. Pretty substantial.
17%. Even currency neutral, that's still 15%.
And that flows down, right? GAAP net income, $3.9 billion, up 20%.
Which gives you a diluted EPS of $4.34, up 23%. Big jumps.
Yeah, and even the adjusted diluted EPS, which smoothed things out a bit, still up 13% to $4.38. Very healthy operationally.
And you see that in the operating income, too, up 26% to $5.1 billion. They're definitely finding efficiencies.
Well, the margins tell that story. GAAP operating margin jumped 4.5 points to 58.8%.
Ow.
Yeah, the adjusted margin is steadier naturally, but still edged up half a point to 59.8%, basically holding near peak efficiency.
But like you said, how sustainable is that? Especially with big investments and rising global complexities.
That's the million-dollar question, or maybe billion-dollar given the risks we'll get to.
And it leads right into the tax situation, which got really interesting this quarter.
Absolutely. Big change there.
The cheap effective tax rate was, what, 21.5%?
Yep, 21.5%. Compare that to Q3 last year, just 15.6%.
That's a huge jump for a company this size. 6 percentage points.
It really is. And the filing points directly to the new global minimum tax rules, Pillar 2.
Ah, Pillar 2. That's kicking in across various places now, right?
Exactly. Took effect in 2025 in places like Singapore, which is key for them because they have, or had, these incentive grants there.
So the global minimum tax basically ate into the benefit they were getting from those Singapore grants.
Pretty much neutralized a good chunk of it, yeah. It's a perfect example of how global policy shifts, things kind of outside their direct control, can hit the bottom line.
Even when revenue is soaring. Okay, so that's the top line. Let's look under the hood, right? That $8.6 billion revenue, 17% growth. Where did it come from? You've got the payment network and then VSS.
Let's start with the payment network. That's the traditional transaction processing side. It grew solidly, but not spectacularly, up 12% reported.
10% currency neutral.
Right. And that's all about usage. You look at the key metrics, local currency basis, gross dollar volume, or GDV.
That's the total value of all the transactions running through their network.
Exactly. Up 9% to a, frankly, staggering $2.7 trillion.
$2.7 trillion in just one quarter.
Mind-boggling scale. And within that, the really juicy part, cross-border volume.
That's travel, international e-commerce.
Yep, higher fees for them. That was up 15%. Really strong indicator of global activity picking up.
And just the sheer number of taps and swipes.
Switch transactions, yeah. Up 10%. So people are using their cards more often. And no wonder they have 3.6 billion Mastercard and Maestro cards out there globally.
Okay, so volume is strong, cross-border's booming, but keeping that volume isn't free, is it? The incentives.
Yeah, yes. Rebates and incentives, the cost of doing business in this space. They paid out, let's see, $5.389 billion in Q3.
$5.4 billion just in rebates and incentives. Wow.
And that figure itself grew 16% year over year, 15% currency neutral.
Why so high? Just competition, new deals.
Both. They mentioned increased volumes driving it, but also signing new deals, renewing old ones. It's a constant battle to keep banks and merchants locked into their network.
And geographically, how does that $2.7 trillion GDV break down?
Well, worldwide growth was 9%. If you strip out the U.S., it was slightly higher, 10%.
So international growth maybe a tad stronger?
Seems like it. Europe and APMEA, Asia-Pacific, Middle East, Africa are major drivers alongside the U.S., keeping that global momentum going.
Okay, let's shift gears to VASS, Value-Added Services and Solutions.
Right. This is the really interesting part. Strategically.
This is where they're trying to be more than just a payment pipe. Yeah. Data, security, analytics.
Exactly. And the growth here is, well, it's huge. VAS's net revenue was up 25% year over year,
25%.
22% currency neutral. Now, acquisitions helped a bit. About 3 percentage points of that growth came from recent buys.
But still, over 20% organic growth in that segment is massive, consistently outpacing the core network.
And that's why it's so important for them. Think about the regulatory pressure on interchange fees, the core network stuff we talked about.
Right, that's always under scrutiny.
So by building up VSS things like security solutions, digital ID, consulting based on their data, they diversify. They create revenue streams that are, less directly exposed to those fee pressures or litigation risks. It's a strategic hedge.
Makes sense. And the filing calls out specific things driving that VSS growth.
Yeah, and mentioned security, digital solutions, authentication, basically making online commerce work better and safer.
The CEO highlighted some specific initiatives too, didn't he?
He did. Things like the Mastercard Commerce Media Network, that's about using their data to help merchants with advertising. Also, new cyber threat intelligence solution.
Protecting the payment ecosystem.
And expanded agentic commerce capabilities. Think AI-driven, personalized shopping experiences.
So it's really about building out that whole digital commerce infrastructure, not just processing the final payment.
Precisely. That 25% growth number. It's confirmation that their big bets, their investments beyond the core network, are starting to really pay off and reshape the business.
Okay, phenomenal growth in services, solid core network. But now we have to talk about the less sunny side, the risks.
The elephant in the room, yeah.
Yeah.
You read the risk factors in the 10Q, and it definitely gives you pause.
Litigation provisions were down this quarter, at least. $83 million.
Down 53% from last year, which is good on the surface. But the underlying scale of the ongoing litigation is, well, it's immense, particularly the U.S. interchange MVL cases.
Right. The big class action settlement is done, but you still have merchants who opted out.
About 55 individual merchants, yeah. Big ones. And they didn't take the settlement. They're still suing.
And what are they claiming? Just those 55?
This is the number that always jumps out at me. They are claiming aggregate single damages.
Yeah.
Just related to Mastercard volume. In excess of $10 billion.
$10 billion just from those opt-outs. And that's single damages before any potential antitrust troubling.
Exactly. And under Mastercard's agreements with Visa from way back, Mastercard is on the hook for 36% of any judgment related to their share of the transactions in that case.
So a potential multi-billion-dollar hit just from this handful of holdouts, compared to what they've actually accrued.
Well, as of September 30th, their total accrued liability for all the U.S. MDL cases was $512 million.
$500 million accrued versus a potential $10 billion plus claim. That's quite a gap.
It is. And the first trial for these opt-outs is now scheduled for April 2026. So this isn't some far-off risk anymore. It's getting very real very soon.
Okay, so that's the big one. What else is bubbling in the legal department? They settled the EMV chip liability case?
They did, yes. That was finalized in September. Cost them an $80 million accrual this quarter. One less thing to worry about, I suppose.
And the ATM surcharge lawsuits?
Still complex. The main case with the ATM operators class is ongoing. Plaintiffs there are claiming over $1 billion against all defendants, not just Mastercard.
But they settled some related consumer cases.
Yeah, they seem to be trying to clear the decks of the smaller stuff. They settled with 2 different consumer classes related to ATM fees, bank ATM users, and non-bank ATM users. Those settlements led to accruals of $93 million and $79 million over the last year or so.
So paying significant amounts to settle consumer claims while the bigger operator fight continues makes sense as a strategy.
Triage, basically. Address the smaller fires while you prepare for the forest fire.
And on top of all these lawsuits, you've got the regulators actively poking around too.
Always. 2 big ones highlighted. In the U.S., the Department of Justice Antitrust Division is investigating their debit program and competition. They've issued a civil investigative demand, a CID.
Which means it's a formal investigation.
Yep. And over in Europe, the European Commission is doing its own formal investigation into network fees charged to acquirers in the EU and EEA, looking for anti-competitive behavior.
So the core business model charging fees on the network is facing serious, organized challenges from governments on both sides of the Atlantic.
Constantly. It's just the cost of being a dominant player in this space.
Okay, so with all that legal risk, plus the need to invest heavily in VSS, cash flow becomes absolutely critical. How are they doing there?
They're a cash machine, no question. First 9 months of 2025, net cash from operations was $12.6 billion.
$12.6 billion, up significantly from last year.
Yeah, it was $9.9 billion in the same period last year. So strong operational performance is generating plenty of cash to handle these challenges and fund growth. They've got plenty of cushion, too. $10.6 billion in cash and equivalents on hand.
Did they need to tap the debt markets recently?
They did issue some debt back in February. $1.25 billion in new USD notes.
Bringing total debt to.
About $19.0 billion outstanding. Which sounds like a lot, but relative to their cash flow and earnings, it's quite manageable. Standard practice, really use operational cash for buybacks, tap cheap debt when needed.
Speaking of buybacks, they've been returning a lot of cash to shareholders.
Oh yeah, aggressively. In just the first 9 months of this year, they bought back 14.7 million shares.
For how much?
$8.2 billion. Average price around $554 per share.
$8 billion in buybacks. That certainly helps boost the EPS numbers we saw earlier.
Absolutely. Shrinking the share count is key to their shareholder return strategy. And they're not done. As of late October, they still had $5.8 billion left on their current repurchase authorization.
So expect more buybacks. And they kept the dividends steady.
Yeah, quarterly dividend declared at $0.76 per share. Consistent pay up there, #tag outro. So you really have these two narratives running side by side, don't you? On one hand, you've got this incredibly successful engine generating strong growth, especially in those high-value areas like cross-border payments and these new digital services.
Really leaning into that VASS strategy.
Exactly. So successfully transitioning, generating great margins. But on the other hand,
there's this constant drag from the legal and regulatory side, complex compliance costs like that Pillar 2 tax hit.
And these enormous multi-billion-dollar legacy lawsuits stemming from the core interchange business that just won't go away.
Which brings us to the final thought for you, the listener, to maybe mull over. We see the rising cost of just operating globally. Pillar 2 taxes, shrinking those benefits they structured. We see the potential, $10 billion plus hit from just those few remaining interchange plaintiffs.
A huge potential liability.
So the question is, how much extra profit, how much margin does that high-growth VASS segment really need to generate just to act as a buffer, to absorb these massive macro-level legal and regulatory hits?
Yeah, is VAS truly driving future net profit growth, or is a big chunk of it effectively just funding the defense and potential settlement of these legacy issues?
The cost of navigating global complexity is clearly going up, and it puts huge pressure on maintaining those near 60% operating margins, something to watch closely.
A critical question for anyone looking at the long-term picture here.
Leave you with that thought. Join us next time for another deep dive.